The camera is permanently switched on and it will hover above the keypad, and that information is accessible by someone else on another mobile device, and they can see you putting your PIN number in.
You've then potentially got a criminal coming towards you who wants their device back, and you put yourself in a position of confrontation that you really don't need to.
You've got some guy in Germany who's making maybe £5 million a year scamming students and others, and he operates with complete impunity.
It's a sunny morning in Coventry and the scammers are searching for the next victim. They don't care who they target or how much damage they cause. You could be getting an email, an offer of a bogus romance, or an invitation to an online auction. All they want is to get your money. It's as simple as that. Luke is a victim of an online fraud involving eBay. He paid for a service he has never received.
3 months ago, when I was in the USA, I bought an iPhone. I've been using it without any issues there. But once I came back to Europe, I was unable to use it anymore because it was locked to American carrier. That's why I decided to unlock it using a service available on eBay. I placed the order, which is supposed to be delivered within the next 30 or 40 working days. Once 40 days was gone, I contacted eBay to find out what's going on with my order. Unfortunately, I was told that the service I bought was not protected under eBay money-back guarantee program, which means I lost my money. I'm pretty sure that the seller used the fact that eBay covers only transactions up to 30 days. They also doesn't protect digital services, which I bought. I didn't give up and I tried to contact the seller individually, which was a bit costly for me because he's located in Russia. Of course, he didn't pick up the phone, so now I have no phone, I lost my money, and I'm a victim of online fraud.
Payments that are sent abroad, it's not directly in association with the European Economic Area, or if it is, their data rules and it's different regulations over there. So the way that you look at it is recovering that money. It could be harder because we're directly bank to bank. You know, language barriers and other things like that as well.
I am disappointed, and now I know that I have to be even more careful while shopping online.
If money has been, so let's say somebody's transferred money, they've seen something advertised on eBay or Facebook, money's been transferred from his account into this other person's account to pay for that good, and that person blocks him on Facebook, blocks him off everything at that point. Now, what he would do is, at that point, he would contact the bank and he would say, look, I've transferred this money, I've not received my iPhone, for example. At that point, what a bank would do is the bank would try to aim to recover that money from the other person's account. Now, when they try to recover that money, the process is that if there's any money left in that account, we'll be able to recover that money, and hopefully there'll be some money left that's there.
Fraudsters usually operate from foreign countries, which makes them even more difficult to catch, and as a result, recover your cash.
eBay is obviously the most popular, if not one of the most popular auction sites globally. With things like phones and auction sites and that kind of thing, it's kind of a contentious area. It's always useful for people to read the stipulation on the website, because eBay might have their own set of rules in terms of this is what will protect you if things go wrong. They might offer an extra service where you might have to pay an extra couple of quid to protect you for something that goes wrong. But these are things that unfortunately we have to take extra steps, extra effort, extra time to read through and check, so we don't end up getting stung if things go wrong.
Sometimes people encourage people to come away from using the auction website in order to pay them because they offer them a better deal, you know. So it goes back to the old adage, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. So once you come away from auction websites and their protection in the method of paying, then potentially you're looking at a problem. The advice is really simple. If you're buying something in an auction website, check out who you're buying it from, obviously, do your normal checks, look at the reviews, look at their history, but clearly stay on the website in order to make the payment so that you have all the protection that those websites offer.
St Andrews, Scotland. Another place, another victim. Arnold was due to fly back from Romania to the UK to complete his studies, but he couldn't because an online thief had stolen all of his money from his bank account.
I was back home for my sister's wedding, and one morning I was trying to buy tickets for my flight back to the UK, and my transaction was declined even though I knew that I had the money because I saved money for the tickets. And I tried again, transaction was declined again, so I checked my bank account. When I checked the bank account, I still had around £50 left, and when I checked a few minutes later, I was on -10, so automatically called the bank to block my card because none of the transactions were mine, so I didn't know what was happening with my money. I was just thinking how and where the money went. So I was going through my statement on my banking, and everything had something related to online bets. So called the bank to see how could this be possible, and asked where the transactions were made from. And the transactions were made from different locations across UK and then Spain, back to UK in a short time, like an hour or so.
Once the bank carried out an investigation, it became clear that they'd sent him a new debit card and password to a house he was no longer renting, thus putting his money in danger.
So I called the agency from which I rented the house, and they told me that there should be no one in the flat, but apparently there were 4 people living. They just moved in the few days after I left.
Based on terms and conditions of any bank, it's his responsibility to always update his address and details. But based on what's actually happened, it's all down to a case handler. What would they say? What would they see? Okay, what's the scenario? Okay, how much has been spent? What's happened? How is the customer not requested a debit card? Where was the compromise? Has someone got access to online banking? Has somebody called up to request for that debit card? Because that's not right. Firstly, that means that he's divulged his details somewhere. He's been a victim of fraud. Somebody's used his details to request that debit card. Technically, he's a victim at that point. He's gone to his old address. At that point, he didn't update it. Okay, but the first thing is that he didn't request. The first thing is he didn't request his, debit card. So you got to look at the compromise at that point.
Following the conclusion of the inquiry, Arnold was thankfully refunded all of his money. However, it made him even more cautious about his personal identity documents. A fellow student, Mathilde, also encountered a problem after falling for a scam on Facebook involving student houses to rent. She was left looking for somewhere to live after losing thousands of pounds to a fake landlord.
So I have one of my friends. She's from Uruguay. Basically, when we moved here to St. Andrews, she was scammed online. Someone on Facebook was advertising an accommodation, student accommodation. I think it was a flat. And she sent a deposit, security deposit. I don't know how much was the amount, but it was a big amount. And when she arrived, the person just disappeared from Facebook, hasn't answered phones, anything, like the phones were turned off. And in desperation, she just had to find a temporary accommodation until the university sorted out student accommodation for her.
Here in Cambridge, Ross Anderson, Professor of Security Engineering, knows all about the problem Mathilde faced. For the past few years, he's been tracking down scammers who deprive students of their money, offering them accommodation that doesn't exist.
Every year there's at least 50 people turn up to either study at Cambridge or work at Cambridge, who arrive here and find that the apartment which they rented doesn't exist. They have been victims of accommodation fraud. And many of these frauds are being done by one guy in Germany. And we've been tracking this for about 3 years. And we try to get the Cambridgeshire Constabulary to do something. Now, normally, they won't touch a fraud for £1,000. Anything under £10,000 is unimportant. So we collect the statistics and we show that, yeah, this is something that's causing losses of many tens of thousands of pounds a year. But what can they do? Cambridgeshire Constabulary can't go to the police in Germany and have this guy arrested. because the only official contact with the German police is the National Crime Agency in London, whose nickname among Britain's police forces is "never caught anyone." So there's actually no effective way for us to get anything done whatsoever about this. And this is down to institution design. This is down to wrong incentives in administration. This is down to governments which didn't want to admit that cybercrime even existed. And as a result, you've got some guy in Germany who's making maybe £5 million a year scamming students and others, and he operates with complete impunity. That's what's wrong here.
Prosecuting those who operate from abroad is extremely hard. Louise Baxter, a manager at the National Trading Standards Scam Team, revealed how the team prevents hundreds of fake postal letters being delivered to potential victims every single day. So she knows just how tough the process is.
99% of it comes from abroad. So we don't have, there's an obvious resource issue in the fact that it's an international investigation. So you don't have access to all the information you would if it was a subject based within the UK. And it's also working within different legislative frameworks and with different partners to try and ensure that you can identify where that particular person is. And there's such a tangled web of organised crime in relation to the money processors, and actually getting back to the perpetrator, the original perpetrator, it's vast amounts of tangled webs of criminal activity.
Over the last couple of years, criminals have come up with various ways of defrauding people. Skimming devices is a popular way to steal your money. These small devices capture data from the magnetic stripe on the back of an ATM card, causing huge losses worldwide. It was an ordinary day for Raisa until she logged into her bank account to pay her bills.
I was not aware of when the fraud happened. I was just logging into my bank account one day to try and pay my house bills, and I noticed I was checking my bank balance and it just came up as zero. So I got really worried because I knew that I didn't have no money in my bank account. And so I started going through my transactions, and there were several payments which I've to companies that I've never bought from, such as Moonpig, and there were two others that I wasn't sure about, and really large amounts. And so I got really, really worried that. So the first thing I did was check to see if I had a bank card with me, and my bank card was with me. So I was like, okay, I don't know how they managed to get my details or how they spent my money because my card is with me. And then I had to try and contact NatWest. But the problem with that was I was abroad at the time, so I had to try and contact NatWest online, which took a while, obviously. But then I had contacted an uncle here in the UK, and he tried to call NatWest on my behalf. And they said they can't do anything about my account because I'm the account holder, so they have to contact me directly. So I had to call the next morning, UK time, and I managed to contact NatWest and go through the transactions and say, this is, I've not made any of these payments to these companies, and all my money has been taken. And so they went through each transaction, and they could tell from the payments that I've never bought from these businesses before, I'd never made these kinds of transactions before. And so after that, they said they were going to start an investigation into the fraud, and they were going to repay me my money the next day.
Fraud is one of those things now which is so common and is basically, when it happens to you, you least expect it. Fraud is not something that you expect to happen to you, and because of that very reason, when you suddenly get stung, it can make you feel like, oh, hang on, I need to check this, I need to check that. It might increase your anxiety levels and make you a bit more vigilant, where usually you've been quite happy to trust everything and you don't really have those fears.
And then when I asked them about how it could have happened, they said maybe if I had made any payments to online websites that I wasn't sure about. But in the last few months I said no, I haven't, because it had all been legitimate websites and I had gone through the NatWest verification process that they have online. And so they said maybe the other alternative was when I was withdrawing cash, that maybe at a certain ATM there was the skim device where it reads your card details. So I'm assuming something like that happened to me.
If I've lost my money to a skimming device, and in that sense, then they would investigate it firstly. That's the first thing they would do. They'd say, okay, is there a duplicate? Is there what's going on? The investigation needs to take place first before anything else can, until a refund is made. What normally banks do have, they do have questions and answers, which would ultimately determine if there is a refund or something. And if these questions are all set, then they will refund. But it's all down to do they meet that criteria of what's taken place? Have they been a victim? That's what this questionnaire means. So if this questionnaire fills out, this person's been a victim, there you go. That person will be able to get one.
Skimming devices are spread around the world at a surprising pace and are easy to obtain. There's a huge black market in China for the gadgets, with some of the parts costing just over £100. AliExpress is an online retail service made up of small businesses in China and elsewhere offering products to international online buyers. Portal is also well known for their hidden auctions, allowing customers to purchase almost anything. You can pretend to order a pair of socks while secretly buying a prohibited device. According to the policy of the portal, it is forbidden to sell different items than the ones advertised on the auction website. That's why hidden offers are usually sought after in private groups on Facebook and other social media outlets. The UK law clearly says that the possession of cybercrime tool is against the law.
If you go and buy a skimming device by mail order from China, then the police would be quite within their rights to arrest you.
We have frequently had things like a bolt-on system that goes onto where the card is, and then you will put your card through. It will read your card as you go through, and it can interpret data from your card to then take money out remotely without you being involved. Or in some circumstances, we have had cameras that have been put on machines, and these have been as simple as a mobile phone camera that's been concealed on the machine. The camera is permanently switched on, and it will hover above the keypad, and that information is accessible by someone else on another mobile device, and they can see you putting your PIN number in. We have had a spate of pickpockets then targeting the person afterwards because the PIN number can be obtained from rewinding the video.
I have contacted AliExpress's representatives to find out why they're not banning sellers who offer small green pieces that fit ATMs. Their reply is simple. These auctions comply with the current law in China.
So if you cover your PIN properly, that's how you prevent yourself being a victim of fraud. And the reason I say that is people often say to me, how can you spot those devices? If you do spot one and you take it off, what are you then going to do with it? You've then potentially got a criminal coming towards you who wants their device back, and you put yourself in a position of confrontation that you really don't need to. So my advice is don't do it. They're very hard to spot anyway in majority of cases. If you cover your PIN properly, you'll prevent yourself being a victim of fraud. It's quite simple.
Today's scam techniques can not only deprive us of our money, some can lead to sexual and emotional abuse. Tess from Sweden had a lucky escape, but her experience will stay with her forever. She was approached on Facebook by a guy who called himself Tashi. She was offered a job in India that required some help with video production for his website. Upon arrival in the country, she was surprised to learn that she had to live with her employer in the same room.
He said that to keep the cost down, we would share a hotel room with a view of the ocean. When I came there, it was just one room, and he said that was the only one they had available, and that I can get my own room if I wanted to, but then I had to pay extra.
By the time Tess arrived in India, she was exhausted. She was too tired to look for another hotel. That's why she agreed to stay in the same room as Tashi. During the 2 weeks she was there, she discovered he was a scam artist after talking to other women across the world.
I was editing a video of an American girl that had been to India before me and worked with Tashi. And while I was editing, I just got curious to contact this girl and ask her about her experience with Tashi, because I had a sense that something was wrong after a while. So I wrote to her on Facebook and I asked if she wanted to do a Skype with me. And she said, yes, I really do want to Skype with you. I have something important to tell you. And when she wrote that, I kind of knew that this was a scam.
This is the point where I refer to, where sometimes we've come from a mindset which is too trustworthy. Something like that also, and this, what I'm about to tell you, applies to everything. If it's too good to be true, then it's not true, basically. It usually is following that line, basically. So it sounds like to be filmed, to be offered something exclusively like that from the blue and all that way. It sounds to me that it's a bit fishy. This is again where we need to be that little bit more suspicious. People and the lengths that they will go to kind of make any kind of gain, they can be quite ruthless in that sense.
She wasn't surprised to learn that more than 50 other women had been tricked in the same way over a period of years. Fortunately for Tess, she was not physically attacked.
But then we had a Skype call and she said that he had been doing this for years. There were over 50 women. He had been, how do you say, scamming. And they had also been victims of sexual abuse from him, and like all of these crazy things that were worse than my story. But over 50 women had been in contact with each other to tell about this guy.
In 2017, there were over 121,000 women from across the UK who've been sexually harassed after falling for an online scam. Many of them have joined Facebook victim groups to share their experiences to try and stop others from coming to any harm. Those who've already fell victim to fraud are left devastated, with little self-worth or confidence left.
It has devastating effects on people where they feel that their life isn't worth living, that they feel completely ashamed, completely embarrassed, we've seen families be torn apart because of this, the levels of anxiety and depression that also come with it when people have been identified as a scam victim. And also you've got to realise we have to deal with the sort of abject social isolation that goes along with some of this stuff, that people are only being scammed or talking to scammers because they haven't got anybody else to talk to.
According to the National Audit Office, online fraud accounts for 1.9 million incidents every year in England and Wales. The growing trend led to the Home Office setting up a joint fraud task force at the end of 2016. Its task includes educating 11 to 18-year-olds in schools about identity fraud, and companies like MasterCard taking steps to try and stamp out this illegal activity.
Most people get educated once they become a victim. Why not educate yourself before? You know, I personally think that there should be some sort of implementation of that training in schools and even colleges, university.
The criminals will try anything. They want money at the end of the day, and they want it quick. So there are various different things here. They'll try anything to try and get these